Hey guys, Kelade here. We need to have a chat about the state of warriors in Battle for Azeroth. I'll go over where we stand in regards to what I consider the three big areas in the game: raiding, Mythic Plus, and PvP. Now, first off, why would you bring a warrior into a group, right? There's a couple of utility things that all three specs bring: Battle Shout and Commanding Shout. Unfortunately, due to scrolls, the need to have at least one warrior in the group is heavily diminished. Battle Shout gives you 10% additional attack power, while a scroll will give you 7% additional attack power. Now, the best part is that the difference isn't even 3%. It's only 2.8% attack power that a warrior would bring in addition to the scroll. And for many groups, that 2.8% attack power could not even be worth it to bring a single warrior to a raid at all times. It's actually way more important to have a monk in the group for physical DPS, since there's no scroll that can replace their buff. The second ability, Commanding Shout, is an okay defensive for the raid, and you can generally make it even better with the Azeroth trait, but Commanding Shout is usually paired up with another healing cooldown anyways, and it isn't perceived as strong since it doesn't really show up on meters. It also doesn't help that there's a lot of things in Mythic Plus in particular that do max HP damage, so that really diminishes the value of this buff. People generally view reduced damage taken as a much better defensive and cooldown than just a bigger HP soak, which your healers have to spend additional mana to heal anyways. I do think as a whole, Commanding Shout is a good ability, but people often do forget about it. Those are the two big things that would provide. There is an additional thing that arms warriors can do where they taunt the boss to get hit by a parable mechanic with die by the sword, like on Mithrax and Moldir, but we're not the only class that can do that. Havoc can actually do it more safely since they can become immune to all damage, right? Not just physical damage. So of the three areas, let's start with raiding first. Let's look at how we stack up in DPS. Wow, would you look at that? Warriors are all the way down there, and arms is even dead last. Since Battle of dazar'alor is much more about spray cleave, range casters, especially the ones that can multi-dot, are doing much better than raid. But even if we just compare ourselves to melee DPS, we're still the weakest along with DKs. In regards to being taken from mechanics, there's not really much we can do since we have no immunities like rogues and demon hunters have. Both of those classes provide much more DPS while having an ability to soak mechanics. It is so rare right now to see a progression raid with more than one warrior when they've had another option to take to fill out their raid. Even the fabled execute phase isn't that great anymore because Fury doesn't have Juggernaut from Legion, right? Arms execute got heavily nerfed in this expansion with the removal of the Azeroth trait precise strikes and the rage refund nerfs on the execute in both single target and when you're using sweeping strikes. Now let's quickly jump over to PvP and then we'll go back to Mythic Plus. The days of being invited to a group just for a Mortal Strike effect isn't a thing anymore since there's much more specs with a Mortal Strike healing debuff now. One huge one for PvP is Windwalkers. They have a Mortal Strike effect and they basically have replaced arms from all melee cleaves. There's actually no scenario or reason where you ever take a warrior over a Windwalker monk right now. There's also a fair amount of ranged cleaves in the meta at the moment that can kill you in basically 2 casts from each caster. This creates a situation where you have to save your heroic leap for just escaping and you're basically left with just one gap closer, your one charge. That actually greatly limits our mobility and we're not really doing that much better than DKs in that front. Add on to that the abilities and PvP talents that can immune/remove slows, and it's not a fun time to be a warrior in PvP either. And even when you do connect to a target, since arms warriors are literally the worst DPS spec in the game, you hit like a fucking wet noodle. Also, with the prevalence of the Maledict trinket in the game, which is nice to have Spell Reflect, it is much easier to counter a Spell Reflect since you can bait it out or even just CC the warrior. There's other effects that can just reverse the healing debuff instead, which is much easier to use since your opponents would have to have already committed to using the trinkets already. Now jumping back to PvE, let's talk about Mythic Plus really quickly. The one place where you can actually shine as a warrior is playing Prot in Mythic Plus due to their insane damage throughout the course of the dungeon. Both Arms and Fury feel weak since their damage is okay but lack any utility for the team. We don't provide a Shroud, we don't provide any long-lasting CC, we don't provide any out-of-combat CC, especially instant ones like Sap and Imprison, and only Prot has an AoE stun of all 3 specs. And we don't have any battle reses or off healing. We're really just there to do damage, and we're basically only going to get picked up when the teams can't find another rogue or demon hunter to fill out their comp. If you're trying to push for high keys as a Fury Warrior, the best comp is probably something like Brewmaster Tank. This is where you can get the 5% physical damage debuff. Resto Druids, they just do so many things. Absolute best Mythic Plus healer, and they're probably your only source of B-Res in a comp with full attack damage. Outlaw Rogue, AoE is too strong. Shroud is way too important for pushing high keys. And then either it's going to be a Havoc Demon Hunter or Beast Mastery Hunter. It just depends if you want to run 3 melee or if you actually want to range in a group, right? But you're going to be focusing on that attack power team right there. I also don't get why I'm still pulling so much threat as a warrior, even when we're not the highest DPS, and even when I have a rogue and a hunter in the group. It still happens all the time, and it fucking sucks. Even worse is that in a raid, if your tanks die, you're almost guaranteed to be next in line every single damn time, even if you're chilling at the bottom of the DPS meter. Like, I feel like I'm a masochist for playing a warrior right now in BFA. Fuck. Well, let me know what you guys think and what your experiences are. I luckily have the benefit of high eye level gear, you know, a US 8th kill on Jaina, a respectable Raider.io score, a BFA Gladiator achievement, and some people even invite me just because they've seen my videos or stream, and I still have trouble getting the group sometimes. So I can't even imagine how difficult it must be to try to join a group right now as a warrior DPS if you don't have those things. Let me know, guys, down in the comments below. As always, feel free to subscribe to see more. See ya.